Welcome to the Power of Your Voice podcast with your host, Johnny Gorky. You have the power to overcome challenges and fears. Let my voice and the voice of many others show you how to transform these challenges into opportunities. To learn more about future podcasts and read episode show notes, check out my website at www.thepowerofyourvoice.com.
This is episode 58 with Jared Bull. He is a professional speaker and transformational coach who runs the online coaching practice, Transformational Coaching. In 2010 and 2011, Jared deployed to Afghanistan and survived 2 heavy combat deployments. Following his exit from the United States Marine Corps, he attended Westchester University and graduated with high honors in 2017 with a bachelor's in liberal arts. Upon his exit, he started up a YouTube channel with a community of over 25,000 members and furthered his education at the University of Georgia in executive coaching. Upon graduation from the University of Georgia, he started up a coaching company, Transformational Coaching, which teaches managers, directors, and CEOs of all art of leadership and productivity. In his free time, he teaches fledgling coaches how to start up a full-time practice online. At 30 years of age, Jared Bull, he has already changed the lives of thousands from his work with clients from all around the world and through his YouTube channel. He is a Sherpa certified executive coach from the University of Georgia, attendee to Steve Chandler's Coaching Prosperity School, and graduate of Michael Neal's Super Coach Academy and former mentee of Michael Neal. Hey Jared, welcome to the Power of Your Voice podcast, brother. It's great to have you on today.
Hey, Johnny, thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here. I'm really excited.
You're very, very welcome. So I want to dive into your background. Like, what is your background? Where are you from? Can you tell me a little bit about your history and what exactly caused you to become a transformational coach? Because that's not something that everyone just wakes up and says, hey, I'm going to be a transformational coach.
Right. Yeah. So really, I guess the first time I had that realization was when I got back from combat in 2012. I did 2 combat deployments to Afghanistan. I'm a Marine and I was a machine gunner. And I joined the Marine Corps when I was 17 years old, went to combat when I was 19 years old. And I experienced like really intense firefights, heavy fighting. And I saw a lot of life and death around me. And that was the first time where I was imprinted with the question, are you living your best life? Are you showing up as your best person and your best self? And are you taking action towards doing that on a daily basis? And that question, I really couldn't unpack it fully until I got out of the Marine Corps, because I had that obligation to serve my country and be with my unit. But then as soon as I got out of the Marine Corps, that question just totally unpacked itself. And that led me down a path of transformation, of healing. So yeah, that was really where it first started. And then I went to school, graduated from school, and I was thinking about going to grad school and going into counseling. But then I was, at the same time, counseling wasn't exciting for me anymore. Like, I did a lot of healing work, I did a lot of therapy, and I thought to myself, well, what do I want to do next? Because counseling, you change people's lives and you can do healing work there, but the orientation is around the past. Whereas coaching, transformative coaching, you integrate the past, yes, but you're looking at the whole spectrum of a person's life. So you're looking at their past, you're looking at their future and where they want to go, and then you're looking at how they're showing up in the present. So it has this different feel to it. And so I remember the first coaching session I had, it was about 5 years ago, and it was such a transformative experience. I felt like suddenly everything in my life was easier. I felt like I was creating more and moving in a direction that I wanted to move. And as soon as I experienced that, I said, okay, yep, this is definitely what I want to do. So I didn't go to grad school. I instead started up a YouTube channel, started releasing content that I was really passionate about. And then it just kind of caught fire. And then people started reaching out and connecting to me. And then I started connecting back. I started charging a little bit of money. I think I started at like $80 an hour, I think was what I started at. And that was where it started. And that was 4 years ago. And then within about a year, I was full time. And now I've trained coaches. I do executive coaching with businesses. So I work for I consult with 2 companies out here in Denver. I ran a coaching school last year and helped coaches go from part-time to full-time in their busy lives. And that's really been the journey, man. It's been a trip how quickly it happens, but that's what I love about coaching. It kind of speeds everything that you want to create, and it all just starts moving quicker.
Yeah, no, I really like that because, like, what you also mentioned in Carl's podcast too, because with therapy, when you go through the traditional therapy setting, it's kind of like the victim, the trauma, that kind of thing. And I know a lot of times people, they don't even want to talk about the trauma. They don't want to talk about, yeah, I was a victim. And where you more embrace it, because it's like, I get it. You went through something horrible. It's honestly, it sucks. But think about it this way. If you didn't go through that stuff that you went through, you would not be where you are today. And for us as adults, it's like, you think about your childhood. Oh, my childhood sucked. But then it's like, okay, I'm actually glad I went through this because I wouldn't be who I am today. You wouldn't be who you are if you never joined the Marine Corps. And I wanted to step into this too, because especially for our vets, just like you, I have a good friend of mine. He retired a couple of years ago. I believe he is a captain. He retired in the Marines. And just like, what you're talking about, being overseas, like, he was sharing stories with me, like being in a Humvee and having a bunch of your friends drive over IED and their entire vehicle explodes and they die in front of you.
Yeah.
That's very traumatic. So
Right.
for any vets who might be listening to this, how are ways that they can overcome this stuff? Because this is not normal stuff for us to go through. We are not supposed to see this kind of stuff. It can really mess us up.
Right. So I think the first thing is there's a distinction between post-traumatic stress disorder and post-traumatic resilience. I think that's the new term is that they're using. It's no longer, they don't look at as a disorder, like post-traumatic stress. We're looking at it as a resilience. And I think it's important to grieve and to be honest with how that situation affected you emotionally and impacted you. But all you got to do is feel the feelings of that experience, which it may help to have, someone to hold you through that space. But there's a lot of wisdom in that. That's the great thing about trauma or, having intense experiences where they don't go as planned. There's so much wisdom if you slow down and take in the wisdom of that experience. So all those experiences where I saw, friends die or get hurt, those changed me in a really profound way. Yes, there was a grief that had to happen, but at the same time, on the other side of that grief, I had so many wise thoughts and understandings come through, like, hey, what's my best life? Hey, I want to value, what do I really value in life? What do I really care about? Hey, life is really precious and fragile, and I need to make the best of it. And so there's always a gift in whatever experience life is offering us, whether it's a learning lesson, whether it's a new way of looking at the world, but we have to feel the feelings, we have to feel the experience, and then consciously look at the wisdom and the insight that that experience is showing or revealing for us, because that's what life is always doing. Life is always trying to teach us something. It's always trying to tell us something. If we have ears for it and we can see, then life can be enjoyable in a sense of you're always learning and you're always growing and you're always developing. We were never meant to come to life and a human experience from a place of it's going to go right. It's going to be perfect. It's going to be organized. No, life is inherently chaotic, but you can bring peace and order to it by learning from the experiences that you have. Just be willing to be bruised, be willing to get a little roughed up, and then, heal your wounds, lick your wounds, and then move forward and see what else it is that you want to create. I was literally just on a call with one of my clients. She's from Ireland. She builds tiny homes, and she had a deal not necessarily go the way that she wanted to. And she hadn't even finished, like she the conversation was still open. Like the deal wasn't closed. It just, there were some things that kept the project from moving forward. And I could see she went into that giving up space, or that, sad space, or, oh, I don't know if I want to continue to do this. And I said, well, first off, the conversation with the client, the potential client, isn't over. And secondly, there's still so much more that you can do. So why are you where's this emotion of giving up coming from so quickly? And then I asked her about it, and then it was linked to some experience that she had where she didn't get what she wanted right away. And she, she shut down and started thinking, oh, this isn't going to work out. But that's the thing, is like, life is always giving us an unlimited amount of opportunities, as long as we're willing to stay emotionally open and available to it. Life will give you unlimited opportunities, whether it's in relationship, whether it's in business. It may not be with the same person, but you can always show up in a different way. And I think once people really recognize that, embody that, it's like, oh, I can play this game however I want. I can try as many times as I want. Sometimes when I really want to work with a person, if it's someone who I really want to work with, I just tell them straight up. I'd be like, look, this is what I see. This is what I see what's going on in your life. I would love to work with you one-on-one. Let's do it. And I'll get no's, and I'll reach back out to them again, like 2 months or 6 months, some things. And, I've had clients and projects not move forward for a year or two. And then finally, after a year or two, it moves forward just because the timing is right. So life is always going to give you an unlimited amount of opportunities, and you can trust that. Like, as long as you're willing to stay open and continually show up, you can't not have a successful business. You can't not have eventually a successful, healthy relationship. It's built into the fabric of who we are, as long as you're willing to stay in the game and continually go at it.
Yeah, well, just like what you're saying with your client, I mean, really, it's just a test. This is part of the process. And the good thing is, by her going through this, it's like, next time when she has to deal with this, oh, you know what? I just need to be more patient. That's it.
Yeah.
It's the process. Everything's going to work out the way it should. Just don't rush anything. Because then if you rush yourself, that's when you're more likely to make mistakes anyway. So
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I always tell myself and my clients to have a relationship with life and the world of testing, trying, and trusting. Life takes all three. Success takes all three. Success in any area of our life. So it's going to take times where we need to test the world and try something new and see if it works, see if it doesn't. It's going to take some times where we need to try and just go for it. And then other times it's going to take a little bit of trusting and faith and recognizing, hey, I just need to let off this. I don't need to push this anymore. And I just need to give this space. So really knowing when to test, try, or trust, I think that's where you're going to get the most bang for your buck in terms of getting the juice out of life. You're knowing when to do each one of those three in any area, whether it's relationship, business, whatever it is that you're trying to create. That's gonna get you real far.
yeah, and ask questions, because that's things like, sometimes you're going through experience and you don't really know what to do. Well, ask a question about that. Now, Jared, for you personally, what are some challenges that you've had to overcome in your life, and how ways that you've overcome them?
That's great. Great question. Where do I begin? Well, I'd first say the first one was definitely healing from combat. That was huge. After I went on my first tour, I had to do things. I had to kill people to survive. I had to see, witness my friends die. And so those were really big, impactful, emotional experiences. And they shaped who I was until I healed those. And so when I first got out of the Marine Corps, I was definitely in a really painful space. I remember after the first deployment, after having those experiences, I actually no longer agreed with war. I just didn't agree. I think there's a time for conflict, and I'm never afraid to go and be conflicting if I need to be, if it aligns with my value systems and it stands for what it is that I stand for. But consciously moving towards chaos or conflict, I don't necessarily agree with that. If someone breaks into my home, I'll do it. But if not, I don't go looking for fighting. And so I think it's really important to recognize that whenever we go through a conflictual experience, there's wisdom there. There's something to get from it. And that was really what that first experience showed me. I actually told my chain of command after my first combat deployment that I no longer was willing to harm and hurt other human beings for some agenda, unless it was protecting. But I wasn't willing to fly over to someone else's country and affect it in the way that I did. And so that was really hard for me to just even come out to the chain of command at the time and let people know that, hey, I don't really agree with what we're doing, and I don't want to kill people anymore, and I don't want to hurt, even if for a supposedly good cause. I just don't want to do that. I don't believe in it. And so that was the first challenge, was being in a warrior culture such as the Marine Corps, and then saying, look, I'm a conscientious objector now. I can't do this. And, you know, I've always been a leader and a driver. And so I was in leadership positions. I was in charge of 28 men, and I was supposed to train the next ones up to go to Afghanistan and teach them how to shoot and fight and you know, be a warrior. And I didn't. I said, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to train these guys up. I'll train them in something else, but not this. And that was really hard. So the chain of command responded to that really differently. So I'd say that was really one of the first biggest challenges that I had. And then getting out of the Marine Corps, I didn't get the benefits that I was promised, like the healthcare benefits. And so I had a lot of PTSD. My body was in a lot of pain. And I had to fight the Veterans Affairs for 3 years in court to get disability pay, to get health care and these other things. And that was really hard too, because at first that really betrayed my trust in my country and in the government. And it was like, why I just served honorably, you know, for my country. Why do I have to fight for this? So that was really a hard time, but really what got me through that was my family. They were really supportive. And I really keep, you know, in executive coaching, we talk about this concept of having a support system and having different levels of support. So having a community that you're a part of, having, you know, friends who support you and help you and reinvigorate you, having those support systems in place is really key. I can honestly say that if I did not have the family that I did, I would have not made it through that time in my life. So I would say those were the two biggest challenges. And then probably the third biggest challenge was really just starting up the work that I've been doing full time for the last 4 years now. That was incredibly intense. I didn't necessarily know what I was doing at times. It was scary because, you know, I was faced with not having a lot of money and, you know, bringing stability and security to a business that takes a process. It takes a lot of energy, takes a lot of commitment, takes a lot of focus. And so really willing to be open in getting support and help from anyone who's gone further than you, I think is incredibly valuable. So that was really the biggest challenge, I think, in terms of what's been most recent, was just bringing stability to my work and my business. And I didn't really do that until I didn't really feel stable in it completely until about 2 years ago. And then, you know, I had enough initial momentum to always bringing in work and building out new programs and things like this. But I didn't really trust my ability to do that and to create a stable business until about 2 years ago. And then once I saw that, oh, I have the skill sets, I have everything that I need to bring stability, then I can choose to expand the business or just keep it at the same level. And so that's really what it's about. It's just about having the right support systems in place to get you through those challenges. And don't be afraid to reach out, connect, hire, or mentor under people who have gone further than you. You know, I've when I look back at my own career, I've done like 4 different coaching programs, and I've had 3 really different powerful mentors. And the last mentorship I did was under Michael Neal, and that was a $75,000 investment for a whole year. But that investment showed me things that I could never see. I mean, Michael Neal, he's been a transformative coach for 4 decades. So he allowed me to master, or is allowing me to master my own craft on a much deeper level, coaching. So I love doing transformative coaching. I love going deep and seeing the next evolution of a human being and what it is that they're trying to learn and what it is that they're trying to evolve within themselves. And I mean, that was why I hired Michael, because he's been doing this work for 4 decades, and he's a successful businessman. He's a successful family man. He has great relationships. His clients love him. His people love him. And I looked for the dirt within those first 4 months. I was like, is everything really good here? Like, do you have, like, are you getting divorced with your wife maybe, or do you not have family members who love you? But like, he's really a guy who's learned to keep his relationships in order. He knows his value systems. He's confident in his ability to build business. And that was one of the reasons why I've hired him. So all of what he's embodied within the last, I guess, 50 plus years of his life, because I think he's like 50, I think he's almost 60 now. I kind of embodied that just by being around him, just by being with him, seeing how he runs his business, seeing how he connects with his clients and his family members. And it's really a way of life. And so I have a lot of respect for anyone who's willing to invest in people who have gone and walked further down the path than they have. So that's the biggest thing as well, I think, to overcome challenges. Hire people or work with people who've gone further than you.
Oh, exactly. Well, one thing I want to ask you, especially being a Marine, Marines are bad to the bone. Now, with that mindset, though, like for any guy that might be listening to us, like, I'm a man. I don't need help. I don't need support. Yeah. I don't need anything. I can do everything on my own. But the reality is we can't. You need support. Now, for any guy that might be listening or lady who's just always been a person, I'm a lone wolfer. I can do everything on my own. I don't need anybody to help me with that. How were you able to break out and say, you know what, I need to ask for my family for some support, because you have an amazing support system, but still other people do as well. But the reality is they just will not ask people that can help them, even though that they have people that seriously could help them. How were you able to ask for that help and support?
So really this is the gift of pain. Eventually it just becomes too painful. Like that was my shift. Like, it got to a point where it was like, man, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I don't want my journey to be painful. There's this belief in evolution that we evolve through pain. Like, that's pretty much what Darwin put down. He said, you look out at life and you see creatures are always constantly trying to build up defense mechanisms and ways of surviving in the world to keep themselves from pain. And that's one way to look at it. But you can also evolve through enjoyment. You can also evolve through pleasure. And I don't think most human beings are aware of that. When I look back at some of my most enjoyable experiences of my life, whether it's, connecting with my baby sister and taking her out on a road trip, or, taking my father out on a vacation or something like that. Those experiences have totally changed and transformed me than some of the experiences that have been most intense. And I really enjoyed those. Like, it showed me a new part of myself. It allowed me to evolve and develop as a man relationally and emotionally. And so we can evolve we don't have to evolve just through pain. Like, I think there's this belief system at the collective level where if you're not full of pain and you don't have any suffering, then you're not doing the work. And that's not necessarily true. I mean, I'm definitely at a point in my own work where, there's times and moments where it's hard and where I have to push through. And then there's other times where I'm like, this is awesome. I wouldn't want to be doing any other thing. And I love this and I enjoy this. Or, a client has a breakthrough, or I get to see someone's life completely change. I was just on a call yesterday with one of my clients, and her entire family structure changed within the last 3 months. Before, she was always supporting her family and serving 24/7 and exhausting herself, which is great. I think it's important to serve and be there for the people that we love. But then she started to realize that, the relationship to her mother, it wasn't a healthy relationship. She was always there for her mother, but her mother was never there for her. And so we worked on that. And then, just within the last 3 months, she's completely shifted her relationship with her family. Now her family supports her just as much as she supports her family. And it's a beautiful reciprocal relationship. So I think there's really, there's space to evolve and grow from a place of enjoyment, not just pain. We don't have to grow that way. There's definitely, pain is a natural part of life, and it's going to be present, and there's going to be times where it comes up, but it doesn't always have to be that way. We can open up to evolving and growing from pleasure and enjoyment as well too. And as long as we're doing both, I think that's a much healthier perspective. So for anyone listening to this who's really trying to move through life through challenge, and who has a hard time reaching out to their support systems, I ask them, how long are you willing to put up with the pain? Because it doesn't have to be that way. You can have support, and support feels so good. It feels so good. Lower back, I've coached a lot of individuals, and I used to have lower back issues as well too. Lower back issues are pointing to the fact that we might be we don't have enough support in our life. Like, that's literally the lower back. Our body is a representation of our relationship to life. And so if we have certain pains in our body, then it's pointing to where we have pains, emotional pains, relational pains in our life. So yeah, that's a big one that I see, people with lower back pain. The first thing I'll ask them is, hey, do you have enough support in your life? Or are you trying to make it through alone?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's kind of interesting because, support, your back needs support.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like, it is challenging for people to ask for help, but once you actually do it, you're like, whew, it's such a sign of relief, because you realize you don't have to do everything. Because the reality is, we're not good at everything.
Right.
And plus, too, the beautiful thing is when you ask for people for support, you really find out how much people really love and care about you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That was a big realization for me. I mean, I remember when I asked for my cousins, I ran 2 live events last year, and I had never done a big live event before. Big for me. I mean, I had like 30 people being a part of it, and it was a 3-day event. And it was the first time where I ever asked my family for support. So I asked my cousins, and they both flew across the country to help me run this event. And it just felt so good. I never realized that I could do that. And so that experience alone was a transformative experience for me. Just asking my own cousins to fly across the country and support me in my work and my mission for the world. That felt so good.
Yeah, no, that's good, because the reality is, a lot of us, we ask our friends, we ask maybe coworkers or other people that we know, but the last people we ever ask are our family, because they might reject us.
Right. We're worried that if we're asking too much, they're gonna leave, and that's that's definitely, like, there's some definite emotional work that can be done there, so we can feel better about asking for what it is that we need.
Yeah, but the beautiful thing is, you got your family involved, then you kind of learn a little bit more about what you do, and then that can really build those relationships even better. It's like, dang, I'm so glad I got this them a part of what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And they might get involved as well, which is just amazing.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I have my cousin in I always run usually 2 programs. I have a low tier program, and then a mid-tier program for coaches. And my cousin Chandler, we grew up together, and she's in one of my lower tier programs. And just because, like, I want to share with everyone, I only do this work from a place of really believing in it. I don't think there's any other way of doing it. And so I invited her into it. I was like, look, Channy, I'd love for you to be a part of this. I know it will really benefit you. And so, like, when you're really living from that space of the heart and you really love your work, why wouldn't you include everyone in it? I had this conversation with a previous client the other day. She's been awesome. She helps me with a lot of volunteer work, and she was a client before that. And I had two one-on-one coaching spots open up. I only ever take on 5 to 7 clients one-on-one, because anything more than that, and I stretch myself, not in a good way. Like I can't serve and show up as the powerful person that I want to if I have more than 7 clients at a time. And so it was really interesting. I had 2 spots open up, so I reached out to my network and I said, hey, do you guys have anyone who is looking to coach one-on-one and who needs support in these areas of her life? And she sent me an email back and she said, Jared, I don't think it's right to ask for business. And it was so funny because I had a great coaching moment with her there. I said, well, if you really believe in what you do and you know you're really good at what you do and you know people need you, why wouldn't you ask your network? Because it's bigger than just making money and running a business. It's people's lives, and you have a service and you have value to bring to the world. So I always encourage individuals, and this, whenever I do my sales coaching, sometimes I coach individuals around sales. The first thing I always say is, look, if you have something that's really valuable and that you know is going to help a person, I would say it's almost your obligation to put it out there in the world. You don't have to, but like, why wouldn't you? If you see, when we look at the evolution of all industries across all sectors over the last 200 years, it is human need that drives business innovation. You look at the medical industry, look how far the medical industry has come from, heart transplants, all these technologies, they evolved from people needing it. Someone saw a need out there in society and said, I want to help people, and I'm going to build something around that to help people and to help individuals. And then if they hadn't done that and taken those actions, people wouldn't be helped. And so your work, your business, and what you're doing for the world, it has value. And it's bigger than you. It's bigger than your money. It's bigger than your own personal goals. It's bigger than your own agenda. And if we can step into that space every single day, we can show up so much more powerfully for our clients and for our work.
It's interesting how what you're saying is like, if you are asking your friend or a family member for business, sometimes people get defensive about that. But yet, if somebody asks you, name a good book, oh my gosh, this book is good, this movie's good. Do you know any good restaurants? Oh, there's tons of restaurants. You got to go here. They got the best food. There's this great coach. You got to work with him. He's like the best. But when it comes to us, a lot of times we won't really promote ourselves. Why is it that people have such a hard time promoting what they do? They're honest. They're very ethical. They do an amazing job, but they just feel that they don't want to talk about what they do. But yet when it comes to everybody else, they will brag, they will tell you everything about how amazing other people are, but they don't do that for themselves. Why is that?
Yeah, beautiful question. I love this, Johnny. So I would say there's definitely an emotion of shame there. Like, shame is this invisible emotion that keeps us from asking for what it is that we really want in life, whether it's business, whether it's a relationship and love. Like, shame keeps us from that. And so I think we're wired evolutionary as human beings to be aware of relationship. So I'm going to connect all this too. So there's the shame and there's a relationship piece, and I'll connect it. But what I see is that because of our evolutionary upbringing, we always want to be a part of the tribe. Like, because in our evolution as human beings, if we left the tribe and we were alone, most of us died because there wasn't opportunity like there is today in the modern culture. And so we have this, I think, proclivity to celebrate other people, and it stems from our evolutionary past. If we didn't be a part of the community, if we weren't a part of the tribe, if we weren't celebrating others and holding their achievements up, then we might lose our position within the community. I think that's a really good evolutionary psychological perspective of it. Now, that being said, when it comes to the individual asking for what it is that they want, what I've found in my own journey and with the clients that I've coached is they have some level of shame around asking for what it is that they really want, because somewhere in their childhood or somewhere in their past, they were shamed or they were put down for asking for what it is that they really wanted or needed. Like having our wants and our needs, there's nothing wrong with asking for those. But so many of the times we play ourselves down or dim our light because we're worried of rejection. And if people say no, then that means we're not worthy. It triggers a worthiness wound within us. And like, that's the thing, is there's no rejection. There's no personal rejection. It's just a yes or a no. Like, it's a preference. It's like going into a restaurant. If you want, the Indian dish, and you ask the waiter and they say like the waiter says, hey, do you want the Indian food or the Thai food? And you say, well, no, I don't want the Indian food. The guy doesn't get offended. He just simply says, okay, well, do you want the Thai dish? And it's the same with our work and our services. It's really just preference. If someone says no, it doesn't mean anything about you at all. It's just they don't prefer it. They don't want it. It's really that simple.
Yeah, and that's perfectly okay. Now, one thing you were mentioning, how you have this coach named Michael, you paid like $75,000, which for some people that's
it was terrifying.
Yeah, that can be a lot, but that really stretches them and they'll really take it seriously. Now, when it goes into a person, they're listening to this or they're listening to any other podcast and they're interested in working with a coach, why is it very important to get a coach that invests in themselves? Because some coaches, they don't really work with other coaches. It's just, I coach people, but they don't really always do the work themselves like you are, which is incredible. And you're constantly getting better at yourself. Why is it so essential to do that? Make sure you work with somebody who's working with other coaches.
Well, I think the first thing is a coach, like a really good coach, will ask the right questions, will be able to point things about yourself that you might not be able to see. And so it's really valuable to have, I think, someone in your life who's gone further than you or who's done things that you want to do. Like, that's incredibly valuable. If we don't, it keeps you motivated, it keeps you focused, it keeps you locked on. So if there's a coach who doesn't have a coach or who's never hired a coach, I would be really skeptical to hire them, because then they don't see the value of it yet. Like if I only sell things that I really like or that I really believe in. So like StreamYard software, that's this awesome software that I can stream to my Facebook and my YouTube at the same time. I love it. I could be a great salesman for StreamYard software because I've used it and I believe in it, like 100%. I know out of personal experience that is the best software out there. And so I would sell that to the high, I would go crazy with it. So I think that's the first thing is really if you don't believe in the power of coaching, yet you're coaching people, you definitely are suffering from some sort of imposter syndrome. And I've been there with imposter syndrome. I think that's a part of the journey. But yeah, like get a coach, like get a mentor, have someone in your life who's gone further than you, because it's just going to speed up your process. It's going to allow you to meet your goals and get you to where you want to be much quicker, just having that connection. And this is going a little bit more into the yogic culture, but I do a lot of yogic practices, not just moving the body, but also, deep meditative practices. I practice Taoism. And when I talk to other yogis and people who study the Taoist traditions and embody them and live them, they talk about this concept of energetic transference, which is when you're connected and around someone, you become more of that person. It's like the 5 people that you hang out with most, you become. That's just how it works. And so I think it's really valuable to spend time around someone who you want to be close to and who you want to understand more and become more of, because then naturally you become more of that person. That energetic transference happens. So if you're a coach, I think it's incredibly valuable to have a coach, because then one, it shows that you believe in the power of it, and 2, it lets you know that it just takes you to where you want to go much quicker. I mean, I think it's really that simple. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Because I mean, you want to make sure that the person you work with has done the work and continues to do the work. And at the end of the day, it just makes them a better coach for you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, doing the inner, if you can only take someone as far as you've gone, you can only take someone as deep as you've gone. That's how it works. Like for me, one of the reasons why I hired Michael was Art of Transformation. He's been doing this work for so long. He's got his stuff and his life in order, which I can see, and he balances all of it, but he's gone so deep within himself, and I could tell that he's gone deeper within himself, and that was what I wanted. So in the coaching world or in the self-development world, we have two ways we can expand. We can expand horizontal or vertical. Horizontal is expanding out in the physical. I'm expanding my business. It's more of the Tony Robbins style approach. I want to expand as quickly as possible in all directions. The vertical approach is going deep into the inner self and doing the inner emotional work, doing the inner mental work. So it's knowing when to expand outward and knowing when to expand vertically and inward. And so if you haven't gone as deep, like you can't take a client to a deeper place unless you've been to that place within yourself. That's just how it works. You can't see what in another person what you haven't worked within yourself. That's just how perception works. So it's so valuable to have a coach who's gone deeper than you, so then you can go deeper within yourself or go further, whichever one you want to do.
Now, to really define it, what is really the big difference for people who are listening? Like, I kind of understand what you're saying, Jared, but what's really the difference between transformational coaching and working with, say, a licensed therapist? What's the big difference in
Gotcha. Yep.
why should I do this one versus that? Because I mean, one might work better for someone else. I mean, it depends on what they're going through. Maybe they need to go through regular therapy and then later on go to transformational therapy as well, or actually
Right.
coaching.
Yep. I got you. It's a great question. So the first off, I just want to say the orientation is a little different. So the orientation of therapy is the past. So I need to integrate my past so I can heal my present. The orientation of coaching is the future. What is it that you want to create for your future? Transformational coaching, the way that this works is you look at the whole of a person. You look at their past, you look at where they want to go, and then you also look at their present and where they are. And then you take an honest, good-hearted assessment of where they are along their own developmental lines. So every human being is always trying to develop down one of 6 lines. They're trying to develop emotionally, they're trying to develop intellectually, trying to develop relationally, trying to develop spiritually, they're trying to develop sexually, and they're trying to develop financially. And so those are the 6 lines of development as a human being. And so transformative coaching looks at all of those different lines, and then it kind of takes an assessment and tally of where you're at on each developmental line. And then you go towards that line. You focus on whatever line that they need most. And what's happened in the past is sometimes we haven't had the right environments or the right people in our life to support us down a certain developmental line just because we didn't have the necessary environment. Like for me, my relational and emotional developmental line was greatly hindered and stunted for years because I didn't have that upbringing growing up. And so I had to do, years of therapy and some time with coaches to help me get those lines and to develop those skill sets. And for other people, it might be financial. I have one client where we're focusing more on the expanding the business and expanding her trust and her ability to create more wealth for herself without anyone's help. So it really depends on where that individual is. But that's really the crux of transformational coaching. It takes the past, the present, and the future all into account, and then looks at all the developmental lines that you're trying to move down.
That's really good.
Yeah, it's a really holistic view of a human.
Yeah, I really, really like that. Now, we're going to start winding down a little bit, but we wanted to just ask you, what are three really important things you want people to take away from this podcast episode, Jared?
Yeah, great. I love that. That's a really great question, Johnny. I would say the first thing is wherever you're at in your human journey, in your human experience, wherever you're at, whether you're trying to develop finances, financial wealth, whether you're trying to develop healthy relationships and you're working through your own family stuff, wherever you may be at, just know that it's temporary and it is your natural trajectory to get to a place where those things are worked out. I think a lot of the times we forget that it's built into who we are as a human being. Like it's built within our path if we allow it and we get the support. You're going to be successful in all areas of your life if you allow yourself to be, if you're open to it. That is your natural path. Every human being has emotional health, relational health, financial wealth. We're all built with this capacity. It may take different shapes and forms on the outside, but no matter what, that's always going to move forward. That's always going to happen. Like it's built into who we are. It's just that we might not have had support systems in place somewhere in our life and we got shut down. And so it's important, I think, one, to recognize that you can have a good life, you can have a beautiful life, you can have beautiful relationships, you can create wealth for yourself. Like that's on offer for your life. That's your natural trajectory if you allow it. The thing is sometimes we've had trauma and other experiences that closes us down from that natural trajectory. I think the second thing would be willing to get messy. Be willing to test, try, and trust. It takes all three. Test the universe, test the world, try new things, and also have a little bit of faith. And then I'd say number three is open room for grace. And when I say grace, I mean those random events or acts of kindness or synchronicities or things that shouldn't happen but just do happen. Open up to miracles, open up to grace. Miracles and grace is always available to us and it's always around us. But sometimes we just don't open up to it, or we're not aware of it, or we're so focused on, getting things together or taking care of our needs, our daily needs and the people that we love. But allow room for grace. So in any moment in life where you're doubting or you're unsure, allow room for grace. It's pretty reliable. It'll come in.
That's really, really good. Yeah, because sometimes we go through a point where, maybe get fired from a job and you're like, oh, my life just stinks. It's just horrible. This is just how my life is. But then later on you realize, no, I'm glad I got fired because it opens up all these other opportunities. The big thing is you just got to be able to see that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Nature abhors a vacuum. And so if something closes and doesn't work out, and you have to leave a job or a relationship doesn't work out, life is going to come in and fill that space in a new way. It can't not. It can't. So I think that's really important to recognize.
Now, if you could go back maybe before how old were you when you joined the Marine Corps? About 18?
Yeah. So I was 18 years old, 17 years old.
Basically, just after high school, which is
Yeah.
usually how it works. If you could go back to about 18, is there anything that you would change differently, Jared?
If I could tell my 18-year-old self, I would probably tell him he's worthy, he's loved, and you don't have to prove to anyone anything, but don't be afraid to prove to things to yourself. Yeah, that's probably what I'd say. And I have proved those things to myself.
That's good. Jared, for people who are listening who might be interested in working with you, how can they find you online, and who would be a good client for you as well?
Oh, thanks, Johnny. Yeah, so I always have two programs going. I have a lower tier program called the Awakening to Life. So in that program, it's a 12-week program where we wake up to what's really going on in our life and what it is that we're trying to develop. So I always have that running. Right now we have 45 people in that. And then I also do a coaching program that teaches coaches how to master the art of coaching itself. And I only ever bring in 10 to 15 people in that whenever I do that program. And so those are the two programs that people want to be a part of. If you want to work one-on-one with me, feel free to check out my website, transformationalcoaching.co. Check out my YouTube channel. I got a community of 25,000 subscribers there. So yeah, really, if you can just check all that out. I got great content there, really good people. And yeah, transformationalcoaching.co, YouTube channel, Transformational Coaching. You'll find me.
I love it, man. Yeah, thank you so much for being a part of Your Voice podcast. Is there any last things you might want to say before we leave it here?
I think that's great, Johnny. I just want to say I appreciate your time. I appreciate your energy. And it's really been an honor and a delight to be here and sharing this space with you.
Johnny here. Thank you for listening to the Power of Your Voice podcast. I would absolutely love to get your feedback on this episode and how it impacted you. Reach out to me on Instagram by sending a direct message to username Voice Podcast. If someone in your life could benefit from this episode, share it with them and check out thepowerofyourvoice.com to read blogs on each podcast episode and learn more about what was discussed. And please leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. This lets me know you find this show valuable. And thank you for listening.